Hi all, let's look at another great game of Lyudmila Rudenko today. So Google Doodle are giving honour to this great player who saved children during the Second World War. So this game was against Elizaveta Bykova in round 2 of the 1949 Women's World Chess Championship held in Moscow. So Bykova herself was a very, very strong player and would later also become a Women's World Chess Champion from 1953 to 56 and again from 1958 to 62, but eventually lost the title to Nona Gabrina Zvashli. Excuse the pronunciation. So we're talking here, this game is basically between two Women's World Chess Champions. So let's have a look at this game in round 2, Mega Clash. We have d4 from Rudenko. Bykova plays knight f6, c4, e6. We go into g3, Catalan territory, d5, bishop g2. Quite an unusual move. It has been seen before in live book. Knight c6, chess-based live book. More usual is bishop e7, or d takes c4. These are the main three. Or bishop b4 check. These are three quite common moves. This is a little bit of a surprise weapon, knight c6. We see knight c3. Knight f3 would transpose into more normal lines, actually. After this has been seen quite a lot. Hundreds of games have been played from this position. And it's thought to be an even position. But actually knight c3 makes it kind of more distinctive, this position, particular position. Bishop b4. White actually does quite a dynamic gambit now. Rudenko actually plays a3, just getting the dark square bishop, but potentially d takes c4 is going to be something of interest to black. And in fact, okay, black castling here, we see bishop g5, d takes c4 now. And we've seen a recent Nakamura game actually on the channel with the same sort of idea and the position of e4, e5 and getting the e4 square. So this is quite a dynamic idea. e4, h6 and bishop takes f6, which I believe is still a bit like this Nakamura game recently featured on the channel. So white's getting some compensation, but here we veer away a different plan. Instead of using the e4 square that quickly, we see a very interesting plan though. f4, bishop d7, knight f3. So what has white got for this gambit? Well, there's more space in the centre, and these pawns could have great mobility at some point. These pawns are doubled, so it's not a big extra pawn at the moment, but towards endgames these are going to be more significant. Rook a b8, white castles, b5. We have queen e2, queen e7, and now given that black's plays on the queen side, this rook's actually tied down as well now by queen e7. White actually plays very aggressively on the king side, which is something we've been seeing a lot on the channel recently with super advanced AI. Guess what? Lyudmila Rudenko, the hero of today on Google Doodle, I should stop saying that. Played in this game. Okay, I think I might have just given it away as well. G4, very aggressive stuff. Google Doodle. This is a tongue twister. Okay, so G6 was played. This might not have been the most optimal response. Knight A5, for example, going into B3. This position is actually, it should be okay for black. If black can dissolve the double pawns, there's going to be a big passed pawn being generated at some point. But this reaction might not have been the most optimal here. It slightly weakens the king side. We have another aggressive move to meet this with. Super aggressive stuff from Rudenko. Can you guess? H4. So this is really a king's crushing game now. Look at this row of pawns here. Very dramatic row of pawns. We have king g7. And now h5, just trying to tear black's king to shreds. But there's another benefit here about this position. White isn't tempted for hg right away. She just plays g5. So this is quite scary. Rook h8. Maybe hg was okay for black. This position should be okay for black. It looks scary, but that pawn could be used as a kind of shield, and black can use the h file. That may be been one of the better ways to handle the position. Rook h8 here, hg, fg. The problem with this position is that white's central pawn mobility might become more pronounced now. After g takes, check, we have knight g5. These pawns are quite dangerous in the center. e5, which doesn't help the cause that much to give white even greater central pawn mobility. It is based on a loose knight. If white takes, obviously the knight's loose here. And white doesn't want to, like, maybe indulge in this either for the same reason. Maybe knight takes e5 here. But white is keen here and uses a great tactical move to actually pronounce the central pawns, their mobility. Very clever tactical move, and positionally giving benefits. I wonder actually if you can spot it here. What move would you play if you're a positional tactical player and you want to preserve the mobility of the centre? You're aware of the loose knight issue on f4, so black's really threatening to take and undermine the knight. But there's a really nice move played here. If I give you 5 seconds, what would you play? Also, d4 is under fire. So this addresses all the concerns of the position now. Very nice move. Queen e3. So it's holding d4, and it's indirectly holding g5, because here, well, black played e takes d4, which you might find strange. But if black tries to undermine the knight, in fact, white doesn't have to play queen takes f4 here. This could run into some issues. White can actually play rook takes f4, leaving the knight because of rook f7, this nice little tactic, which means actually this is very, very comfortable, this position. So maybe that's why black decided to take on d4. But now we do have central pawn mobility here. An option maybe to have considered is rook h5. So again, renewing e takes f4 as a threat to undermine the knight. If the knight has to go back, this position, yeah, it looks a bit cramped for black, but maybe black's got a fairly solid position there. Okay, so in the game anyway, e takes d4 was played, c takes, knight d8, and we see, yeah, the centre pawns are running away here a bit. d5, black has to be really careful. Not only is there central pawn mobility, this d4 square is lovely for the queen now. After knight f7, lovely square for the queen. And in fact, tactically, black cannot afford queen f6 in this position. Black steps back with her king. If queen f6, e5, and this is just horrible. If here, then taking, and then e6 is winning material. Because if knight takes g5, then there's two pieces hanging here, the rook and the bishop. So this, for example, just taking the bishop after is the most precise way. So it's too dangerous to play queen f6. So we see king g8, knight f3. Now bishop h3 was played. Again, this might be a position where black might be okay with rook d8, just trying to hold the center. For example, like this, trying to hold and undermine the center. This is an example continuation where black should be okay. But in the game, actually, the center is creeping forward now after this continuation. The center is pretty dangerous. And it's not only that, the queen on d4 is pretty dangerous for this diagonal. We see here rook h1. It's getting incredibly dangerous for black. Queen f8 was played. And this is leading to a disaster now, actually, this position. But it was already, it's already a very difficult position in any case. But it leads to the disaster now because e6, and black, in desperation, gives up, has to give up a piece. She played rook takes h1. You might wonder why this is the case. The problem is, if black plays knight d6 here, can you see a crushing move in this position? If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video. There's a crushing tactical blow available in this position. e7, which the queen's overloaded here, holding the rook, and against the d8. So here, rook takes. Yeah, it's just totally overloaded, this position. So black is busted really now. She loses a key piece. So rook takes h1, and The rook can't even take here because of rook h8 checkmate. It's too dangerous on h8, so that's parried. But of course, black's a piece down. The concern maybe for white is these pawns, are they going to be dangerous? So there is a bit of technique needed here. g5, f5. White's essentially a piece up though, for not too much compensation. We have queen f6, knight f3, hitting the queen, wanting an exchange of rooks. Knight takes g5. Now we get an exchange of rooks. White's clearly just a piece up here. Threatening mate on g7. Now, check. And actually, we have queen g6, allowing a few checks for the king to march in quite stylishly into the black position over here. And this position, king f8, the game ended here. It's pretty hopeless for black. If, say, c3, then queen f6 check, and the king's holding the g8 escape square. So it might have been like this as an example finish. So I thought that was quite a nice game in the Catalan. Very dynamic pawn sacrifice gambit, which has been used even today by the likes of Nakamura. I'm pretty sure very close resemblance to a game we've seen recently on this channel. I'll give you the game reference for that. This gambit of the c4 pawn. In this game, the plan wasn't so much pivoting on e4 for getting a tactic with f6, but actually flooding the king side and increasing the central pawn mobility, and having a beautifully central queen on d4. So, okay, I hope you got something from that one. I thought that was quite interesting and entertaining myself. So, Rudenko, a great hero, saving children, and world chess champion. What more can you want? Fantastic person. Comments, questions, shares, appreciated. Thanks very much.